She can't just rub some talc on her junk and then head to the date. She's got to shave her body from head to toe, get dressed up, put makeup on, and all that stuff, right? It just takes long, which is a fair point, but Tamara says you're forgetting about CPT, which Mindy wrongly assumes is colored people time.
Whoa. No.
To be honest, I feel uncomfortable even repeating that joke. I feel like it's gonna be clipped now. Look, he said colored people.
Please don't cancel us. Please.
Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be doing the next episode of the Mindy Project. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, I'm just going to give you a quick agenda. We start with the potent notables that are just a couple interesting facts or tidbits that I found out about the episode or series. Then I do the episode overview, which is just me talking about everything that happened in the episode, so spoiler alert. And then I do the rank, the namesake of the show, where I rank the episode on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, in 5 different categories, all to find out what is the best sitcom of all time. And today, we're going to be ranking the 6th episode of the 3rd season of the Mindy Project, titled Caramel Princess Time. Written by Charlie Grandy and Mindy Kaling and directed by Beth McCarthy Miller. So let's find out how this stacks up, starting with the potent notables.
Potent notables.
So this 6th episode of the 3rd season aired Tuesday, November 4th, 2014, and the Mindy Project increased its audience this week from 2.2 million to a relatively solid, for Mindy Project standards, 2.8 million viewers. And for the other potent notable, I found out that Mindy would often order lunch for the cast and crew, but that she would always order under the name Peggy. Apparently she got this advice from the creator of Malcolm in the Middle, Linwood Bomber. Use a different name just in case the place hates you or your show. I guess there's just a potential that people will mess with your food if they don't like you or your show. Seems ridiculous, but I'm sure it happens. Anyway, so those are the potent notables. Let's go to the episode overview. We open the episode looking at a movie marquee, and on it is listed The Godfather Part 2. And right away I was thinking this has to be Danny, right? It's definitely not Mindy. And I was right, as Danny is waiting outside for Mindy to arrive. She's getting ready back at her home, but she's texting him that she's already in the cab. And then when she's in the cab, she's texting him that she's already there and she's in the crowd. And she finally arrives, but Danny's upset because he's missed the trivia portion of the cinematic experience. And I'm curious, what is your trivia like now? Because when I go to the movies, I feel like it's either something really easy or it's just like one Pepsi ad trying to get you to finish the quote. And both of those, they just end up there for like a month. So if you go to see more than one movie a month, you're just answering the same question. Anyway, she's like, come on, let's go. And they go to order tickets and they're sold out. Now the problem is twofold, right? Because while it is messed up that she made him wait, also, Danny, why wouldn't you buy the freaking tickets? You're sitting there waiting, just buy the tickets. And as they're walking away, Danny's talking about how upset he is that he can't show this movie that he grew up on or whatever. And Mindy's like, who's even heard of this? Who's heard of The Godfather? It's ridiculous. Although I do feel like it both fits for her and doesn't fit. Like, she's super into pop culture, but she doesn't know The Godfather. It does still make sense though. But we're gonna get the opening credits right after that. And when those are done, we head straight to the office where Danny is complaining about Mindy being late to work and being late to basically everything else. But Mindy is unapologetic. She's like, you take the good with the bad. And Danny's like, well, why can't I take the good with the good like you do with me? I'll tell you, this guy does not lack for confidence, even though he did fail in his first marriage. But Danny's gonna head to his office, and there to meet him is Dr. Fishman from last episode, the new director of the hospital. Now, in the last episode, Danny had pretended to be suicidal to match Mindy's lie. But now the repercussions are coming because Dr. Fishman is gonna say, hey, I want you to take this mental health seminar, which is going to come into play later. But for now, we're gonna find out what the B story is. And the B story is that Tamara and, involved via insertion, Morgan are trying to set up Peter for a blind date with Tamara's friend Abby. And Tamara describes her as basically her twin. So of course Peter is now picturing a tall, attractive black woman. Before we get to see this play out though, we're gonna cut back over to Mindy, who's arriving at a comedy club for some Italian-American comedy show, I guess. Naturally, she's got a seat in the front row. And when she gets there, Danny's not there. So when she sits down, she texts him and she's like, hey, look who's here and who's not now. But Danny's gonna respond and be like, no, I was there. You're late. I was sick of waiting. Now, I get the premise here, Danny, but this is a fucked up thing to do to your girlfriend. She ends up getting verbally abused by the comic who calls her J-Lo and asks if she's texting Ben Affleck. And who knew that would be relevant again 10 years later? And eventually she just ends up getting kicked out of the venue. But after the comedy club, we get to see how the blind date is gonna go with Peter. So he runs into a woman named Abby who's waiting at the bar, and she's waiting for her date, and he doesn't think that she's the Abby that he's looking for. because this Abby is a slightly heavier white woman, not a tall, thin black woman that would be a twin for Tamara. But we know that Abby is waiting for Peter because she's said she's waiting for a doctor who looks like Meatloaf, or a Meatloaf, she wasn't sure. Now what Peter does here is really messed up. I can understand the disappointment, but it's messed up. Because look, I'm all for getting to know someone, but I can understand being disappointed when you had like an image in your mind of what somebody's gonna be and that's not who it is. But come on, Peter, you gotta stick it out. That's not what he does though. Oh no, he's gonna fake a patient going into labor. And as he describes what's going on, Abby's like, is that the plot to Look Who's Talking? Which is so great, because I have not thought about that movie in forever, but the fact that they both have that movie's synopsis on their fingertips is just hilarious. Back to the office we go though, as we see Mindy is really upset with Danny. Rightfully so. Danny's not backing down though. He's insisting it's rude that you're always late. But she walks away from him to give him the silent treatment, although it's not very silent. And she goes into the break room where apparently everybody is, and Danny's like, great, I'm glad that we get to have this private conversation in front of everybody. And Beverly's like, you're welcome, Dr. Q. What a goofy lady. I love this character. So Mindy's actually going to make some valid points about being late. She can't just rub some talc on her junk and then head to the date. She's got to shave her body from head to toe, get dressed up, put makeup on, and all that stuff, right? It just takes longer, which is a fair point. But Tamara says you're forgetting about CPT, which Mindy wrongly assumes is colored people time.
Whoa. No.
I gotta be honest, I feel uncomfortable even repeating that joke. I feel like it's gonna be clipped now. Look, he said colored people.
Please don't cancel us. Please.
But no, it means caramel princess time. See, when you look as good as they do, people gotta wait for you. Danny's like, bullshit. You're either late or you're on time. Period. But then he throws down the gauntlet. He will never be late, ever. And clearly Mindy takes it as a challenge. But before we see how Mindy's gonna take up this challenge, we get to see how annoyed Tamara and Morgan are at Peter for ditching Abby. I mean, Morgan doesn't get it. Abby's the whole package. Head, shoulders, knees, toes, knees and toes. And I feel like this is a good litmus test for if we have the same sense of humor. Let me know in the comments, did that joke work for you?
No.
Let's be friends.
Also a no.
Now that that's out of the way, we're gonna find out how Mindy takes up the challenge of making Danny late to something. She's gonna set his digital clock back an hour. This feels a lot more harmless than ditching someone at a comedy show in the front row. Danny soon realizes what Mindy's done and he refuses to be late. He's out jogging, but he's like, screw it, I'm not even gonna get regularly dressed. I'm gonna sprint to the office in my shorts just to make sure that I'm there on time to prove her wrong. And he does just barely make it on time and starts celebrating crazily. How does he do it? He pretends to shoot everybody with finger guns. Boom, 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 boom. What? And of course, this whole time, Dr. Fishman, you can see, is in the background. And the last time he saw her, he jokingly said that he's closer to murdering Mindy than he is to suicide, which made her nervous. So, fake shooting people in the office probably wasn't the best idea in front of Dr. Fishman. As a matter of fact, she's going to suspend him from being able to do deliveries in her hospital until he's done the seminar. The problem for Danny, though, obviously he doesn't want to go, but also it takes place on Saturday, which is when he's going to take his mom on her errands. And apparently if he doesn't do it, she just doesn't do the errands. But then we get the kicker. We find out that Dr. Delorier is running the class in the same building. And then Mindy, feeling terrible about it, offers to take Annette, Danny's mom, on the errands. So we head back to the B story, and Peter is going to be in line to apologize to Abby. What's he in line for? Well, Abby writes historical romance novels, and she's there signing copies of her book. So he picks up her book and he starts reading. By the time he finally gets to the end of the line to where she is, he's read quite a bit of the book. And he's really impressed. And now, not only does he want to apologize, but he wants to ask her out again. And thankfully, she's like, no, fuck you. You ditched me because you didn't like how I looked? You're a jerk. Peter, also thankfully, agrees with her assessment. Now, since Danny is going to the mental health seminar and Mindy is going to take his mom on errands, we sort of have a split of the A story, right? So we've got like A1 and A2. So the whole point of this A2 story is that Mindy is basically getting a taste of her own medicine. She's going to experience how inconsiderate it is for somebody to be so cavalier with your time. As it turns out that getting Annette and apparently Dot, who's there also, to go to these errands is like herding cats. So we're seeing how Mindy is going to learn from her mistakes, but what about Danny? He's at the mental health seminar and he's not happy about it. But we get some real fun bits here with Danny getting chummy with a blood lab guy until he finds out that the blood lab guy's there because he was stealing blood for personal use, whatever that means. Now, maybe this is just me, but I would think that if you're stealing blood from a blood lab, that would be a cause for termination and not just a mental health seminar. We also find out that Morgan's there because, in Morgan's words, his boss is in love with him and he's addicted to cookies. So Morgan and Danny end up being partnered up, but Danny isn't playing along and Morgan keeps tattling on him. Morgan's whole, is he stupid, naive, or just weird thing is always just fun for me. But eventually, Brendan Delorier is going to say to Danny, I'm going to have to work with you one-on-one because you're not doing what you need to do. But before we see this one-on-one, we see Mindy's final straw. After taking Annette and Dot to their hairstylist, in which Mindy gets a haircut that apparently Annette made her get that looks like she's straight out of the 80s, she takes Annette to a mammogram, which she's super late for, and the tech is about to leave. Mindy cajoles her into staying, but then Annette's like, I don't want to do it anymore. And this is where Mindy explodes, calling them inconsiderate among other things, and she's absolutely right. But Annette and Dot start crying. So we head back to Danny. So Danny's sitting right across from Brendan, and Brendan is digging deep about why he's there. Why does it matter so much to you, Danny, that Mindy is late? Before he goes on, he discloses to the group that he had sex with Mindy a lot of times before. And Danny's like, why did that need to be said? But what it boils down to is that Danny's dad had said he was going to take him to Ghostbusters when he was a kid. And Danny sat around waiting for him and he never showed up. And now, I actually found this surprisingly touching. Also, it really worked for Danny's motivation, and it made me empathize him in a way that they hadn't really been able to do with Danny since they got Danny and Mindy together. So obviously this is going to lead to a reconciliation between them. But first we need to see how the B story is going to end. Well, Peter is going to show up at Abby's writer's workshop and start reading a story that he wrote that's about the Titanic. So the point of the whole story is to say that he judged her without getting to know her, and he'd really like to get to know her. And I could see how this would win her over. So I was okay with them having that be the case. But we're back to Danny and Mindy is sitting outside of Danny's mom's house with Annette and Dot inside, and they blocked her out. Mindy is still really pissed, and she calls Dot and Annette spaghetti heads, which is just really goofy. And then tells Danny that she understands now and she's just gonna try to never be late to anything ever again. But Danny's gonna say, you know what, I think I may have overreacted because of some stuff that happened with my dad. Anyway, Danny's gonna make this statement about how he likes how she looks on a Staten Island porch. And she's like, I'd rather die. Then we get a really bizarre comment to end the episode on when Danny remarks on Mindy's hair and says how she looks really good and it's really working for him. Why? Because she now looks like an aunt of his. Now, I'm not saying that line wasn't funny, but whoa. That's how the episode ends, though. Some allusions to incest. Let's find out how it ranked.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And then I have a laugh counter where I tally up the amount of times the episode made me laugh. 1 point per laugh out loud gets added to the score. But before I dive into the scores here, I just want to say, if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help me out. But without further ado, the first category is story. And there's not much of a story here. It's just sort of follow people around and see what happens once again. I mean, we get an overarching theme for the A story that is being late is rude. And the B story is really just getting Peter a love interest. They both work and are fun, but there's just not much story there. So I gave it a 2.25. So let's go to acting. I thought the acting was excellent in this one, actually. Chris Messina had a great performance in this. He was comedic and over the top in the funny moments, but really grounded and subdued in the dramatic moments. I thought everyone was great, but his acting in particular made me decide to go with a 5 for this one. So let's go to dialogue. Now, this show is always funny, but I did find myself lagging a little bit throughout this episode. There were a lot more jokes than normal that didn't really land for me. They weren't bad, they were just sort of like, okay, I see how that would be funny. So I ended up giving it a 3.75. So let's go to episode coherence. Well, same issue here as with story. It was kind of all over the place, both the A story and the B story. Character-wise, it was really good. Everyone felt right where they should be, and we're getting some fun growth in Danny and Mindy's relationship, as opposed to just Danny being kind of a dick. So I'm gonna split the difference here and say 3.5. So let's go to character relatability. I found this to be a really relatable episode. Everything felt grounded and honest, even though it was mixed into a world of goofiness. It is really disrespectful to be late, but don't leave your girlfriend behind to prove a point. Also, I totally get Peter not being interested physically in someone initially, but I liked that he came around when he read her writing. I gave it a 5. So that brings us to the laugh counter. Some pretty decent rankings, really, except for story. So it's not going to take a huge laugh counter to keep it in the top 3 tiers, but it did get a good laugh counter, as Mindy Project usually does. It got me 20 times. And that puts the grand total of the episode to a 39.5, which puts it in the Holy Grail. As for the series average, it jumps up a little bit more to a 36.9, keeping it in the Holy Grail. And if you're ranking along with me, please drop your scores in the comments. I'd be really curious to see where we're the same and where we're different, especially with the laugh counter. But thanks for listening and or watching. Check out the other Mindy Project episodes or other sitcom and movie episodes that I've done. Remember to subscribe, comment, and like. You can see up-to-date rankings on therankedpodcast.com or email me there at john@therankedpodcast.com. And if you want to become a patron, you can do that at patreon.com/therankedpodcast. But I will leave you with this. Abby and Peter actually went on to get married and have a kid. And do you know what they said when their child said its first word? Look who's talking now!
Oh, brother.
Also, I totally get Peter not...
Cut!
Also, I totally get Peter not being
Cut!
Also, I totally get Peter being not interested physically with someone. Man, I can't talk.